Thank you so much, Sahar. I really appreciate that. Good morning, everyone. Good morning. Just look around. We're here, as you pointed out, we're here in person. Of course, we have our wonderful group that's streaming in. This does really feel like a gift to me personally, and that's because this is a gift. We did our best to stay connected during these past 2 years. Our regional alumni chapters, and we have a lot of representatives and heads of those here today, they outdid themselves with their pivots to virtual programs, outdoor hikes, something that I personally really enjoy. We have 2 groups that I want to call out of passionate alumni who founded new affinity groups. One dedicated to women in leadership, and the other to crypto economics. Sahar, we thank you for the role that you played in forming Women in Leadership Alumna. Thank you. And thanks to everyone who found one more new way for the Haas Network to show why it is the greatest anywhere. So to the classes celebrating your reunion in person this weekend and our other classes who are here today, who missed out on their milestone gathering because of COVID, welcome home to Haas. It feels as if we have been waiting for this weekend forever. Actually, we have been waiting a very long time. It's been 2 extremely long years, and between us, we have actually a lot to catch up on. We have a lot of new faculty. We have new research. The impact of Haas on policy has never been greater. Right now, we have 3 faculty, one of them faculty emeritus, who's the Secretary of Treasury, Janet Yellen, and 2 others who are Deputy Assistant Secretaries. So Catherine Wolfram is one of them, Adair Morse, and of course, Janet Yellen. All women, by the way. And of course, the way all of our students and our alumni, through the companies that they create and the ones they lead, they all challenge business to do better. So just out of curiosity, I'm going to do a quick poll. When you left your offices 2 years ago, how long did you think you would be gone? Who thought a couple weeks? Raise your hands. Wow. Who thought maybe a month or 2? Raise your hands. It pretty much takes care of the entire room. I mean, we all thought it would be a short thing. And then as the weeks went by, and then the months went by, and then the years went by, it was pretty amazing. And as we passed the 2-year mark this March, I think we have all sort of reflected and taken stock and asked ourselves, well, what have we learned from this really horrific experience? And will we take those lessons forward? I know that personally, and I'm sure all of you in your personal lives, you found a new appreciation for many things that we all once took for granted. Just getting together with your friends, having a Sunday night dinner with your family, going to a soccer game with your children. These things have definitely made me appreciate just the simple act of going to a restaurant makes me happy. I went to Chez Panisse for the first time in 2 years, and I just couldn't believe how wonderful it still was and hadn't changed. In our work lives, the pandemic changed the way millions of Americans do their jobs. At Haas, there have been many lessons. One of the interesting lessons is that in real time, in actually 48 hours, we discovered that we could deliver all of the Haas classes online. And then we figured out how to do it in high quality. In real time, we reimagined how we teach, who gets to learn, and we asked ourselves, does geography really need to be a barrier? Can't we teach what we teach from anywhere in the world to anyone anywhere in the world? And from the ashes of the pandemic, we have a new phoenix arising, our FTMBA offering, which is the new hybrid cohort for our evening and weekend program, which will start in the fall. That program will allow students to take their entire first year of the evening and weekend program remotely in our new virtual classrooms, and after that they will have the choice in whether to come to campus or to continue remotely. Not surprisingly, we have had applications to that program from all over the world. By tapping into new technology tools and taking away geographic restrictions, we are definitely making Haas available and accessible to more students. So from very bitter lemons, I believe we are making the sweetest lemonade. I can tell you, this is very exciting. At Haas, in every way, we are leading in new and important areas. We are literally the heart of what's next. And let me tell you a little bit about that. You already heard from Sahar that we have a three-pronged agenda. I call it my ISI agenda. I for innovation, S for sustainability, and the last I, perhaps the most important one, for inclusion. And of course, not just inclusion, but diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging. Let me tell you very briefly about those three areas. This year, Haas became the first leading business school to teach a required course on managing diverse teams. That is now in our MBA course. In the same way, we are taking the lead on sustainability. We're not just treating it as a separate elective that some students can take. We are weaving the fundamentals of sustainability, whether it's accounting or strategy or finance, into the school's core curriculum. And thanks to a gift that supports the teaching materials needed for this shift, we are doing the same with diversity, equity, and inclusion. Why are we doing that? Business as usual will not work anymore. The world has a new spreadsheet, and it must confront the realities of climate change and our environment, the widening gap between rich and poor, and racial injustice. Interestingly, in sustainability, it is business that is leading the way. It is not governments. To lead in the future, we need to be able to lead with purpose. We need to be able to think differently. And that's why at Haas over the summer, we're actually going to break ground on a new entrepreneurship hub, a physical space housed right across from the stadium. We will be converting the old Department of Demography into this entrepreneurship hub. Of course, we could not do any of this without your help and your support. And it is our alumni and our donors, the investment that you make in Haas, not just financially, but in all the ways that you are there for Haas, that allows us to do the work of educating the next generation of business leaders. Building on our cherished defining leadership principles, those next generation of business leaders will be the heart of what's next. We know we can count on you to hire Haas, to mentor a student, to recruit for Haas, to ask your peers to donate during Big Give. This year during Big Give, our alumni, which is a 24-hour period, contributed more than $2.4 million to Haas in just that one day. And to date this year, for this reunion weekend, our reunion alumni have raised over $2 million. Just 431 of you. One of the gifts is from our board member, Haruki Satomi. Haruki, would you like to stand up? Haruki is a graduate. Haruki Satomi is a graduate of our evening and weekend MBA class of 2012. He flew in from Japan for this event, and he's committed $1 million towards our new entrepreneurship hub. I also just got word earlier this week that one of our graduates, Enrique Ceribelli, class of 2007, has made a $500,000 pledge over 10 years in support of MBA fellowships. He credits much of his success to Haas, who he says took a chance on him. Talk about going beyond yourself. Thank you, Enrique and Haruki. So the contributions of our alumni, from the work you do in the world to your investment in our future, are critical to keeping this school at the forefront of business schools worldwide. If you have not yet made a gift this year, we would welcome your participation, and we thank you all for your support. During the past 2 years, we all have learned lessons we never imagined in what support means, in what resilience means. But I know one person who can teach us so much more: Alvaro Silberstein, MBA 2017. Alvaro is the co-founder of Wheel the World. It is an online destination for people with disabilities and seniors to book accessible travel. For Alvaro, the idea was to empower millions of people around the world to be able to explore without limits. Those limits were something that he understood. When he was in high school, a car accident left Alvaro paralyzed. Still, he went on to earn his undergraduate degree in information technology engineering in Chile and his MBA from Haas. He also became one of the first to complete a rugged trek in Patagonia by wheelchair. He made the journey with the help of his friend and fellow Haas alum, Camilo Navarro. That journey was the inspiration for Wheel the World, the company they founded together in 2018. And that journey continues full circle today, coming back home to Haas. So please join me in welcoming Alvaro Silberstein to Alumni Weekend, and thank you for serving as our alumni keynote speaker today.
If you want, we can talk about what led us to use wheels instead of legs. That way, we can tell you the sad version and version 2.0, which is even sadder. Or if you'd rather, we could do it like the movies, and we'll embellish everything with a tearful story of effort and determination. But there's something we have to tell you. We're not superheroes. We didn't feel like them when we climbed to over 2,430 meters above sea level, or in the most beautiful and incredible places in the world. Unlike superheroes, we thought the same thing anyone would. We felt grateful to be there, because it made us understand several things. But before we start to tell you, could you please change the music? Because there in Machu Picchu, we realized that despite everything, this is not a cheap imitation of life. This is not a copy or a simulation. This is not a lake that longs with all its heart to be the sea. This, my friends, is life. Life at its fullest. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise. Don't let anyone make you feel otherwise. Believe us, we are saying this for every tear shed, for every person hugged. In flickering neon lights with fireworks lighting up the sky, life. Pack your bags, recover the ability to wonder, open your heart and let it explore. But even then, you won't be prepared for this, because we are not inviting you to travel. We are inviting you to live.
Hello, everyone. Do you hear me well? Yes. Well, first of all, thank you very much, Dean and Tenny, for giving me this amazing chance of sharing a little bit about what I've been doing since I graduated from Haas. My name is Alvaro. I am originally from Chile. I am 36 years old. And I think that I have a childhood very similar to most of you. I am the youngest of four brothers. I grew up and living in Santiago, Chile. And my life was pretty much into the outdoors when I was a kid. I was always doing a lot of sports. I went camping every summer with my family. And being active and being outside was very close to my heart and to what I really loved to do. And when I was 18 years old, I was in my freshman year of engineering back in Santiago, and I had a totally unexpected instance that I was part of a car accident, and a drunk driver went to the opposite side of the road and they crashed the car that I was sitting in the back seat. And since that instance, I have my body paralyzed from the chest down. I move partially my arms, and I don't move the fingers of my hands because I broke my neck at the level C5 and I had a spinal cord injury. When something happened, something like that happened to you, is tough to accept it, right? And it was totally my case. It was really hard to realize that I would need to learn everything again, from brushing my teeth, from learning how I would get dressed every morning, on how I would see other people, right? Because I will be sitting a little bit lower and interact with people in a different way, how I would move around. So many uncertainties and things that I didn't know that how they would work out happened to me in that moment. Especially because the world has not been designed for people with accessibility needs, for people with disabilities to pursue their lives as they want. I was very lucky. I had a very strong support of my family and my friends that allowed me to realize that I should work hard on my independence, on my recovery, so I could regain the independence that I needed to overcome the things that I wanted to do in life. At first, to be honest, wasn't that I did it because I was confident that I will regain happiness, and I did it basically because of them, because of many people that were supporting me and believing in me that I could regain the path of my life. But at some point, finishing my rehabilitation for 1 year, going back to university, graduating, working for a consulting firm, having friends, having a good life, I realized that at some point, without even knowing it, I was enjoying life, and I was so grateful about that support of people that it ended up at some point also being people from Haas that helped me out on this journey. And for me, one of the dreams that I also had was to living abroad, to go out of my comfort zone, living in another country and pursuing an MBA, as many of you had this dream. And my application to apply here was basically saying that I wanted to become a leader, to solve problems for people with disabilities, given that I was so lucky to have so much support. And I was looking for so many opportunities in my personal life that could be replicated to so many other people. And to be honest, it might be that when I wrote this phrase, right, when I was doing my applications, it was a little bit about bullshit, right? Not necessarily I was thinking that I would become an entrepreneur and maybe I would apply to McKinsey, try to apply to McKinsey or to Google, whatsoever, after my MBA. But but my experience here was so exciting, so it was so inspiring. And for the first time, I was living by my own. When I moved here to Berkeley, before that, I was living in my parents' house, very close to all my support of people that were helping me out on everything that I would need. And I decided to live far away from that support, by my own for the first time, getting to know other people, so inspiring, amazing, and smart people that was also at some points overwhelming. But I also find hope here, find a community that support me on this challenge and that this dream that was becoming reality. And here I also realized, without even knowing before, that all the disability inclusion movement started in this place, in Berkeley, in the 70s, when Ed Roberts, the first Berkeley student with a disability in the history in Berkeley, started working here. And he started a movement saying that access should be better for people with disabilities, that we should change access in transportation, in streets, in companies, in university. And this ended with the creation of the ADA, that happens to be the reason why the US is the most inclusive and accessible place in the world for people with disabilities. And this movement that he started, it was with a very clear slogan that is nothing about us without us. So that means that they didn't want other people that didn't have disabilities to define what was inclusion for them. And actually, they wanted to be the leaders of this movement and these definitions. And for me, this was so relevant and made me so much sense. And this was pretty much ending my first year, that I realized that this bullshit phrase that I wrote to my applications should be something real, and it should be something that it was also a responsibility of myself. And I started figuring out on how to become a leader in terms of disability inclusion. I was part of many classes at Berkeley in my second year, pursuing entrepreneurial ideas that didn't end up in a good way. I remember having a great conversation with Rob Chandra, a great professor that he passed away a few years ago, telling me that I should do this. I should seek to become an entrepreneur related to things related with disabilities. And after many different experiments with different ideas that they failed, this become true because actually it's something that it wasn't expected. Being here in California, I also had much more access to the outdoors again. And this was so inspiring to me, and I remember that my dream always since a kid was to visit this place, Torres del Paine in Patagonia, the most famous national park and outdoor place in my hometown in Chile. So I called my good friend Camilo, that today is my co-founder, telling him, dude, I have had so many amazing experiences in the outdoors, visiting national parks here in California. I'm visiting my family for Christmas. Why don't we organize a trip to Patagonia and Torres del Paine? And Camilo is this kind of guy that when he thinks that there's an exciting idea, he will never stop until it's possible to achieve it. So he got this idea of how we can make a trip together to Torres del Paine in Patagonia. And we started figuring out and talking to people and figure out how I would go to this place that I feared so much because I assumed that it wasn't accessible for me, right? And we started talking to people that works for the travel industry there. And they started telling us, how are you planning to do this trip? Like, how wide is your wheelchair? 70 centimeters, okay? The path in Torres del Paine is 20 centimeters. It will be impossible. How you will move around, etc., etc. So we started figuring out, and we found like a hiking specialized chair that is manufactured in France that would allow us to do this trek because it's a chair that is specialized for going in inaccessible places with the help of your friends, right? That push you through these outdoor trails. But this wheelchair cost like $10,000, and we didn't have that money. I was spending enough money here doing my MBA, right? And so we decided to transform our trip into a project. And we say, okay, let's do for the very first time ever the first wheelchair trip of a user to complete the W trip in Patagonia. That would be myself, but to open paths to others, because we would work out on how to do this trip, what were the accommodations that we would stay, how we would move around, and we would leave this equipment in Patagonia. We will train tour operators so other people could repeat. So this was accomplished. The trip was amazing. I still remember the first day in the middle of nowhere looking this beauty, saying, oh, like, okay, this is the time that I realized that even being disabled, I can overcome anything. And it was also amazing for my friends and also for the travel industry in Torres del Paine, who were so inspired that realizing that also people with limited mobility could explore this beautiful place. And our story went viral. It had a lot of PR. For example, Google did a post in Instagram about our trip. That's kind of weird that Google makes a post in Instagram, but it happened. Mark Zuckerberg, for example, in his first public live internal Q&A, he did a speech, and he ended his speech with a video of our story. But this is pretty much an anecdote, that this became viral, and this was like very well known for a lot of people all over the world. Also with the help of Berkeley, we had some PR in San Francisco. It was exciting to be in the San Francisco Chronicle. But the most important thing was that after that viralization of our story, hundreds of people started reaching out saying, oh, how cool that trip of Alvaro. I also have a disability. I also want to travel to Torres del Paine. Or how cool, I have a brother that has a disability. I want to bring him to Torres del Paine. So we started organizing this trip to other people. We were not a company, we were not a non-profit, we were not a travel agency, nothing. It was just me and Camilo who knew about how to plan this trip with people with similar challenges as me. And to be honest, my last semester here at Haas, I didn't study much. I was like not attending every class because I was totally focused on this, on allowing other people to repeat this amazing adventure. Actually, the first person who repeated this trip is the kid that it is in the central superior picture. And this kid has a cognitive disability, and he and his family, they live in the closest city of this national park, a city that is called Punta Arenas in Chile. I think it's the southest city in the world. And they never realized that it was possible for them to explore this beauty, this amazing place that was 3 hours from their house. And this just happened 3 weeks after my trip. And we started organizing this trip to people from California, from Australia, from Chile, from Bolivia, from Peru, from Brazil. And we achieved like around 60 people plus their companions did this trip in a period of 6 to 8 months. And as students at Berkeley, Camilo, my co-founder, he was also doing a program here, not at Haas, but in Berkeley. We started exploring more the opportunity, and we easily realized that it was much larger than just organizing trips for people to Torres del Paine. And we realized, and also through personal experiences and talking with many people, that people with disabilities face several challenges when they want to travel. And basically, first, because the accessibility information is not online yet. You can find everything online, but accessibility information about travel services, it hasn't been raised. And this information needs to be very detailed because most probably that someone here has a disability or a family member that has it, and most probably that they have a different needs from me. Every person with disabilities have different needs, and that makes the problem much more complicated. And that's why this information of accessibility needs to be very detailed, so it's relevant for each person to decide what's feasible for them. And the third thing that we realized is that hospitality businesses in the travel industry, they have no idea on how accessible or inaccessible are their services. So I come from a country that we are very overconfident. So people, when they send an email to a hotel, most probably in Patagonia, and asking if it's wheelchair accessible, most probably that the person will say, absolutely, it's super accessible. And when you get there, it's like the same stairs that you need to get up to this auditorium. And there's other countries like the US that they're like the opposite, right? And they don't want to be in a compliance problem, so they say no, nothing is accessible, but it might be, and there's opportunities to be overtaken to make people enjoy. And this is a problem that many times people say, okay, but how many people need accessibility? And actually, there's 1 billion people in the world that has disabilities. It's 15% of the world's population. And if we consider our families and friends, there's at least other billion people that they don't have a disability, but they also need it. For example, my girlfriend here, Florencia, if we go to a restaurant that is not accessible, of course, she suffers as well as me, even more, actually, sometimes. So at least 30% of the world population today needs accessibility. And population is aging, right? By 2050, there's estimations that there will not be only 1 billion people in the world that will have disabilities, but 2 billion people in the world. Because of aging. And we always like to say that disabilities is the only minority that is actually not a minority. But because all of us at some point in our lives will be disabled. But no worry, because that moment when it happens, the world will be everywhere in the world. And this is something, a context to make this even further, the point even further. Disabilities are an emerging market larger than China. The disposable income of families of people with disabilities are $13 trillion. So the GDP of China is, I think, $12 trillion. So this is an emerging market larger than China, and believe me, very underserved. The travel expenditure by people with disabilities today is 120 billion, which represents around 6% of the whole travel industry. So if we consider by simple math that 15% of the world's population today has disabilities, there's a potential accessible travel market of 300 billion if better service and a more inclusive industry is accomplished. So that's why we decided to found Wheel the World. Wheel the World is a Delaware corporation, a benefit corporation with the purpose to make the world accessible. This is what everything that we do is considering this framework of that we want to make the world accessible. And what we have been building since 2018, in a very simple way to explain it, is the Booking.com or the Expedia for people who need accessibility. So at wheeltheworld.com, people with disabilities, a lot of senior people and their companions, they can find and book accessible places to stay, so accommodations, tours and activities, and multi-day trips, with the simple value proposition that every listing that can be booked in our platform has extremely detailed accessibility information. Accurate and detailed accessibility information. The user experience that we've been building is that the system recommends what best fits user needs, and a customer service that we guarantee the accessibility that they find in our platform in the experience they have when traveling. And so far, around 1,800 people has booked trips through our platform. From these 1,800 people, 40% are people with disabilities. 60% are companions of someone who has a disability. So normally our booking is on average 3 people, 1 with disabilities, 2 without. These 1,800 people has been people represented by 15 nationalities. 80% of the people are from the US. And through our history, while we've been growing and we bootstrapped it out, doing other stuff rather than focusing on bookings, we realized that if we have more listings to offer in our platform that can be booked in our platform, more people ended up finding what they need. So we started in 2019 with 170 listings that could be booked in our platform, and we did around 250K in revenues. Then a pandemic arrived that, of course, was really hard, and we needed to accommodate and to be resilient to don't die in the process. And we had so tough conversations. It was so relevant what the dean said in her speech in terms of that at some point we realized that we should pivot into another industry or another way to impact our users. But we always had conviction that travel will never die, and travel will eventually will come. It took much longer than we expected, to be honest, but finally on 2021, we started to grow again. In May of 2021, we started having clients again. And still with half of our inventory closed, we did our best year. And 2022 so far has been really good, and we are expecting to do more than 6 times what we did on 2021. We are having monthly growth of around 25%, which we are expecting to continue in the process. And as I said before, we are very focused on how to allow our users to find more relevant experiences, accommodations, tours and activities, and multi-day trips to be booked in our platform. So today, when our users go into our platform, we are having like around 1,500 people visiting our website every day. Only 15% of them, when they search the destination that they want to travel, they are finding it in our platform. So we still don't have too much inventory to serve our clients as the way they are expecting to. So our focus today is how we bring more relevant inventory to our platform. And we are doing this through technology. We built an app that is called the Accessibility Mapping System to digitize in detail accessibility information. And we are sending what we call mappers to different places around the world to collect the data points that are relevant for our users. For example, in a hotel, what's the width of the doors, what's the height of the bed, what type of shower. We're bringing this detailed accessibility data to the cloud. With that data, we can also assess that partner, that hotel or tour operator, to understand how accessible is their facility, their service, and how they can improve it. And we list this listing at Wheel the World so our customers can book it. And on their user site at wheeltheworld.com, people sign up and they build their accessibility needs profile, stating what are their specific needs, so the system can recommend them what are the listings that best fit their needs, so they can make a reliable and confident booking. We're focusing in the US that today they are already spending $23 billion in travel every year. For 14 million US Americans with disabilities travel at least once every year with really bad experiences. And and they're doing 40 million trips per year. And we have built a brand around the good feedback and the viralization that our users and our clients spread around different media. At the end of the day, our clients are very emotional clients because they use our service with a lot of expectations that they haven't had before with the current travel services. And this has so far worked pretty well. Our Net Promoter Score is great, and people are very emotionally attached with our brand and with our service. And it's also a big responsibility on how to keep the high level of standards so they have a great experience when traveling with us, satisfying the accessibility needs that they have. And these are some pictures of our recent clients. So, for example, Christine traveling to Florence, Jaslyn with his family visiting Orlando, Annabelle doing a zip lining adventure in Costa Rica, or Michelle doing a scuba diving day in Maui, Hawaii. And that's the thing that pushes us and moves us, and every time that we have a good review of someone traveling with us, it's a celebration for us. And we have also built a brand through PR, trying to change perceptions on how disabilities are seen. I've been disabled for 18 years, and every product and service that has been designed for us, they use the word care or assistive. They use the blue color that is like the global color to represent hospitals, right? And we're trying to do totally the opposite, right? Like trying to make people realize, people with disabilities, that they can do anything, and also change perceptions around disabilities of people who don't have disabilities. And this has allowed us also to become leaders of opportunity in the industry, and we have been very well awarded by many companies. And today we are a 40-people team who are very passionate about our mission. Diverse, it's majority women, represented by 13 nationalities. And the most important of all of this is that at least 70% of our team lives the customer problem by having a disability. I can speak louder. Thank you. I didn't realize that. By having disabilities or having someone close to them that has it, and they come by great companies, and they decided to work at Wheel the World, given that they feel that the mission that we are pursuing is important. We also have investors. Kayak Ventures and Detroit Venture Partners are our main investors. Detroit Venture Partners is the VC whose solo LP is the most influential people with disabilities in the world. His name is Daniel Gilbert. He's the founder of Quicken Loans. And he organized a trip to his family through us, and he ended up investing on us. And also people that are super relevant to what we are building, as Gillian Tans, who is the former CEO of Booking.com, Susan, who is the CEO of YouTube, who are also are advisors of us and investors believing that our cause is important. So today, what we are focused today at Wheel the World and for the next 2 years is to become the best solution for people with disabilities in the US to explore the world. So one of the things that I learned in HAS is to prioritize, right? We had so many interesting opportunities here in these 2 years that it was impossible to take all of them, and we need to focus and prioritize, and that's what we are doing, to focus in our customers from the US. And the 3 things that we are pushing to achieve this goal is to scale our supply of listings, improve our product, tech, and operations, and that's why we grew our team in the past 6 months from 20 people to 40. and position our brand in the US and win the US market. And we had a plan for that. We want to go from 1,000 listings to 9,000 in 2 years. And we are building technology and using technology to better recommend our clients what's the best listings that fits their needs. Also helping our partners to become more accessible with a kind of certification to allow them to be more accessible and to understand about how they can better serve our users. And also building our brand through inspiration. We do PR, yes, we do digital marketing, partnerships. The most important for me is, in marketing is building a great product that can be recommended by other people. But always focusing on changing perceptions around what's possible for people with disabilities and inviting them to live as the initial video that you saw. So that's pretty much about Wheel the World. These are still pictures of our users that are going places that they never thought possible, and we are in the path of allowing, hopefully in the future, millions of people traveling to thousands of destinations. But our vision is even larger than that, and we want to make the world accessible through this concept of raising information of accessibility in detail, so each person can understand what best fits their specific needs. And we are starting through travel, through hotels and tours and activities for people in the US. Second stage would be to expand globally, right, and add other verticals from the travel industry. But also, we can also think even further, and 10 years from today maybe, is to expand to other industries. You cannot imagine how hard for me was to find accessible housing here in the Bay Area when I moved here. So this concept of collecting data of accessibility in detail can be also replicated for the housing industry, for product and services, for restaurants, even for job inclusion. And that's our long-term vision on how Wheel the World can continue making an impact for our users. And these are the values of our company, very inspired by the HAS principles. Actually, I wanted to add confidence without attitude. That is my favorite HAS principle, but would be some, maybe I would have compliant programs if I copy that. But one of the values that we decided to define is positive activism. And it's how we can push society in general to be more inclusive and accessible for people with disabilities. So I want to end up my presentation taking care of this value. And I know that all of you work for great companies building incredible products and services. But the reality is that there's a global economics of disability study that was made in 2020 that it says that when asked, people with disabilities say that between 75 to 80% of their customer experiences are a failure. So that means that the majority of the companies that exist, that we all work for, they are a failure when designing their products and services for people with disabilities. And this is no sense, right? Like, we are in 2022. There's 30% of the world population that needs accessibility, and this will continue to increase. And still 80% of products and services are a failure for us. Actually, this is an example. I couldn't handle the clicker to make my presentation, so that's why I asked the people from HAS to do it from my computer. So that's something that I wish you all think about, on how we can push our companies, push the services that we offer, to consider people with disabilities, because as society so far, we have failed. And we're totally focused on travel, so we need everyone to also help us out on considering other services to become more accessible too. Thank you very much. I hope you like the presentation. Thank you very much.
So we have some time for Q&A. Anyone who has questions, please come up to the microphones in the aisles. Or speak in your very loud MBA voice.
I can hear you and I can rephrase your question. So.
I guess I'll just try my loud voice. I noticed that one of your slides said that Machu Picchu is now wheelchair accessible.
Is it not?
I'm sorry, it's not?
It's not, but we
Okay.
have designed a service that we define with local communities to make it accessible for our clients, and we are the first company that ideate a special service to bring people with disabilities there. It's impossible to make wheelchair accessible, Machu Picchu wheelchair accessible, given that it's a ruin that has a lot of restrictions in terms of history and things. But we ended up ideating a service in which we help people with support and with different equipment to go around and have an accessible experience.
Well, I guess you've already answered my question, which was that I'm sure that there is a political dimension to a lot of changes that you would like to see, and I was wondering how that had been accomplished. And
No, it didn't. I'm sorry. That was something that was... we didn't write down that thing, but we make people travel to Machu Picchu. Actually, I saw 3 reviews from Machu Picchu this morning about Wheel the World, and we have ideated something on a private way. Sometimes we have struggled and tried to push public things to improve, but we ended up realizing that it's faster and better to do it ourselves in the best way possible. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Between your plans for phase 1 and phase 3, there were a couple of ideas that kind of build also on what the previous speaker said.
Please.
So are you also working with the providers of, let's say, the activities and the hotels to improve their accessibility, as, for example, making more natural parks accessible? And also, are you thinking about including services around, let's say, loaner specialized equipment?
Yes. So we partner a lot with adaptive equipment that are doing this all kind of equipment to, for example, beach wheelchairs and adaptive equipment to go on a bike ride, etc. And we help our partners to acquire this equipment so they can have it to our clients. Many times we acquire it ourselves when we see that there's a hot activity that is super, it has a lot of interest from our users, and we do that investment many times. But we partner with them so we can have discounts and we can co-market those equipments with our brand too. Yeah, but it's a really good idea.
Thank you so much, Alvaro, for leaving us
Thank
with
you
this
very much.
story
I really
and so
appreciate
much to think about. And thank you for really making us think about what we can go back and champion on our sides as well.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you all.